My name is Andrea Bombino, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory podcast and the Herstory TV. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia this time. And I am graced today with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman coming to us all the way from the US. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Thank you, Gertrude. My name is Andrea Bombino, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and I am 34 years old. My story begins when I was 2 years old, and my father died unexpectedly, leaving my mother essentially a single mother of two very young children. Growing up, I was the first child to immigrant parents. My mother came to the US from Colombia and my father from Cuba. And I absolutely grew up as a first generation American, feeling that I really needed to prove myself and to build something for myself to make my family proud. I really struggled to realize how different I was when I went away to university, having grown up as in a very heavily Hispanic and multicultural area, 5 minutes outside of New York City. When I went to uni, all of a sudden I was confronted with an environment that was very blonde, blue-eyed, and all the other kids' parents dropped them off for uni in Mercedes and BMWs. And I felt automatically that I really just did not fit in. And it was the first time in my life that I really felt a bit like an outsider. But when I had been growing up from being a very young girl, my mother had always told me that I was smart and that I was hardworking and that if I put my best foot forward, I would be able to be successful. And so when I felt that things were not really working out at uni, I just put my head down and decided to study sociology, the study of people. I figured, how could I possibly go wrong? And by the time I graduated with honors, I felt that I had found something that I was really passionate about, and that was relationships and people and understanding how people work. And I went on to work at a recruitment agency where I spent 7 years servicing financial institutions on Wall Street. And I worked incredibly hard. I worked 60 to 70-hour work weeks. I didn't sleep very much. I just tried to achieve and achieve and achieve. And I realized one day when I woke up 7 years later that I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really know what I valued. I'd been told that I was successful, but I didn't feel successful. I felt like an imposter. And it wasn't until shortly after I decided I needed to make a big change. And all of a sudden, I met my now husband, who is an Australian, at a dive bar in the West Village. And we just started talking about our backgrounds and our futures and where we wanted to be and the sort of people we wanted to be in, the lives we wanted to have. And I realized that we were very aligned. And down the line, to cut a very long story short, I ended up moving to Australia after visiting him, and we got married, and we thought that we'd always wanted to have kids. And well, I thought that I always wanted to have kids. I think now I know that it was just an expectation that I felt from others. And even though we had made that conscious decision, when I got pregnant, I was devastated because 2 days before I had just gotten a promotion at work. And by then I was working at LinkedIn, a massive American tech company in Australia. And I just thought, wait a second, I know I wanted to be a mother, but I also really want to be a career woman. And I don't know how those two things can happen. I hadn't grown up really seeing very many women that were career women and also mothers. My own mother worked part-time, and she made sure that we had a hot breakfast every morning before school, and she packed our lunches, and she picked us up, and she helped us with our homework, and she never missed a sporting event, and she made a dinner from scratch every night. And I just thought, how could I possibly do that and also have a career? And it took me some time to kind of get to the headspace where I was starting to understand how I could make space for both. And one of my favorite sayings now is pregnancy is the shortest ramp up time for a career change that lasts a lifetime. And so all of a sudden, by the time I started feeling comfortable with this idea of being a mother, my daughter was born, and it was just all kind of upside down all over again. I was entirely resentful of my husband off the bat because I felt like even though he was like the most perfect, doting husband and father, his life really hadn't changed. I know it did, and we've talked about it, and it definitely did. But for me, I felt like I had changed physically, mentally, emotionally. Gone was the woman from New York City and Wall Street who literally did not cry for 5 years straight after being told off by multiple clients after the GFC. And now all of a sudden, if I saw a puppy on a commercial, it would bring tears to my eyes. So I was very confused by all of these feelings. And a few months after my daughter was born, I just started getting very angry with society because I felt that I'd been told a lie. I'd been fed this lie that you could, do it all and be it all. And I still didn't understand how that was going to work. And I was trying to do some research and try to figure out like what this identity shift was and how to handle it and how to be less resentful and less angry about it and how to embrace it. And I came across a professor at Columbia University in New York City who talked about the concept of matrescence, which is the becoming of a mother. And it's actually a term that was coined by the same woman, Dana Raphael, in the 70s, who coined the term doula. And yet it's been forgotten by society. And the whole concept is very similar to adolescence. So just like when you're going through adolescence, you have physical changes and mental changes and your relationships change. It's the same thing when you become a mother. The only difference is that when we see a teenager, we think, oh, let's treat them with such compassion. It's a really tough time for them. We don't think the same thing about a mother. When you're 12, I'm knocking on the door of 13, nobody says to you, hey, tomorrow you turn 13, here's the key to the car, and here's a mortgage. But that's kind of the way that we treat mothers in Western society. And we just expect them to know everything and to be confident and to get on with life. And so the more and more I studied this, the more I realized this was the message that women needed to hear. Women needed to know that motherhood is not the same for everyone, but the one thing that we do share is this transition period, this transformation, this becoming of mother. And I felt that instead of all the emphasis on getting the right pram and designing a Pinterest-worthy nursery and making sure that, everything is themed perfectly, that really we need to find space for women to come together and talk about these changes. And so that's why I started my own coaching business called Made to Mother Co., which is really about empowering women and sharing the experience of that transitionary period so that women can feel that it is normal to not know who they are, normal to feel that split and that internal identity shift.
Wow, what a journey you've been on. Motherhood, you're right, it's something that is just thrust on most young women with no guidebook or this is how you do it. You're literally thrown in and you have to kind of learn to swim when you get there. And what I find, especially being from Africa, the challenge that a lot of young moms have in the Western world is you're in an environment where you're not seeing your aunts, your cousins, your sisters having the babies and bringing them up. As you know, I'm here in Melbourne with my only daughter who's about to have a baby as well. Mm-hmm. And when she said to me, Mom, please come, I really need your support, I really felt that I needed to be here. Now, this organization that you've started is really empowering and supporting young moms. Mm-hmm. Tell us 3 things that anyone can expect that you are offering that you had wanted to have got when you were thrust into motherhood. What would they be?
The first thing I would say is, I think what is absolutely key is kindness, understanding how to speak to yourself with kindness and understanding that it's a whole new world. It's a learning curve. And I think because so many women nowadays don't grow up seeing close cousins and aunts and uncles and people having children around. And even though I grew up with a massive family, I think I forgot, I forgot what it was like to see and spend time with my aunt, for instance, who had a baby and then twins a year and a half later. And I was with them so much when I was 17, 18 years old. And I remember it being hard, but it wasn't, they weren't my children. So
Yeah.
I kind of glossed over that. And so I remember saying to her, like, you're doing a great job. And now I look back at that and I think, we as women, I think especially as like career women who are very driven and are women that want to be in control of things, you have to learn to speak to yourself with kindness and speak to yourself the way you'd speak to your own child or the way you'd speak to your best friend. Because if that internal voice is constantly criticizing you, telling you you need to be doing more, you need to be accomplishing more. If you look at motherhood the way you would a traditional to-do list,
Yes.
you'll go crazy. So I think that first thing is like treat yourself with kindness. The second thing is lessen control. So to learn to let go of control, learn to flourish in the transition and embrace the uncertainty. Because if you're constantly trying to control everything around you and everyone around you in every situation, you're going to just feel really overwhelmed. And so one of the only things you can control during this time period is really your mindset. So that goes back to that speaking to yourself with kindness and knowing that, it's just a season of your life. Yes, the nights might be very long, the days might be short, but the year, or what's the saying? The nights are long, the years are short. And so it's being able to reflect on that control and realize, okay, this control that I had in my corporate life or in my professional life is not going to serve me in motherhood. And that really ties into the third thing that I wish I had understood more, which were my values. I absolutely thought I knew by the time I became a mother that I knew who I was as a person and that I knew what my values were. And I think to a certain extent I did, but I didn't expect them to change when I became a mother. And so, for instance, like I really value integrity, and that has not changed. But something like the go-getter mentality and this constant drive forward that I've always seen as such a value add and as a positive, I've actually realized like it does not serve me in this season of my life the same way. I've needed to learn to soften and relax and to allow myself to just be. So the previous overachiever attitude that was once valued to me just doesn't serve in the same way. And so I think those three things, when women become very clear and understand that these changes are normal and that treat yourself with kindness, and let go of some of that control and understand what your values were and how they're changing, can make a massive difference in the stress and anxiety that women feel around this identity shift.
Wow. Wow, that is just amazing. Now, looking to the future. So you've had a baby. I take it your baby's a little girl.
She is.
As you are building this amazing supportive organization, what do you see in the future for her? Say when you are at 90 years old and you're sitting in your rocking chair, reflecting back on what you have achieved in this life. If you were to have a conversation with that future you, what would you say to her based on this legacy that you're leaving for your daughter?
So what would I say to her? Or what would I say to myself?
To your future self.
To my future self.
Yes.
That's an excellent question. I would tell myself that the approval of others is not nearly as important as the love that I have for myself. And that if I do nothing else in this world but teach my daughter and other women how to feel the same way about themselves, to value themselves, to love themselves, to really truly invest in getting to know themselves, especially as they change, because you're not the same person forever. Then I will feel like I've actually contributed something to this world.
Oh, that is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So how can people get hold of you? Are you guys online? How does your organization work?
Yep. So I have a website. It's www.madetomotherco.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, also at Made to Mother Co, or on LinkedIn as Made to Mother Co. So big focus there on women and the workplace. and really just, making sure that women understand these changes so that they can really thrive in this season of life.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrea, for coming online today and gracing us with your presence and your knowledge. I'm sure there's going to be a flood of young moms getting in touch with you. Definitely a service that is needed right now. And especially in light with what's going on with COVID-19, people not getting access to their mothers or their aunts or close family members to support them. I take it your organization is operating online as well and helping people remotely?
Yes, definitely. I'm working really with on Zoom all the time, and then on WhatsApp as well. So yes, people can email me. They can reach out on Instagram or LinkedIn. We can set up a Zoom call. I'm totally open to it. I totally understand as well, not having your mother around, and I'm so glad that you get to be there for your daughter. I'm still waiting for Australia to open the borders so that my own mother can come and meet her granddaughter. But yeah, it's a very rewarding type of relationship to establish online with women. So I would welcome any of that conversation. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. Please come back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing young woman. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. And if you would like to watch the replay, go onto the herstorycircle.com website. Thank you, Andrea. Bye-bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.